Young lady's name is ShakKah Khan, and I'm told that after you recorded your last session, you had a big event in your life, right?
Well, it wasn't really the last one. It was one before the last.
She's the queen of funk, a woman whose voice could fill stadiums and whose energy could electrify an entire generation. 10 Grammy Awards, sold-out tours, collaborations with legends like Prince, Stevie Wonder, and Quincy Jones. ShakKah Khan's career was the stuff of dreams. But for all the spotlight and applause, her real life wasn't all glitz and glory. Behind the sequins and stage lights was a teenage mother trying to figure out diapers and daycare in between sound checks and studio sessions. She delivered platinum albums to the world and her own children between tour stops. ShakKah's fans knew her as the fearless diva of I'm Every Woman, but her children knew her as a mother who sometimes disappeared into the chaos of fame and other times fought like hell to be present. So what really happened to the kids who grew up in her shadow, traveling the world on tour buses, raised in the middle of music history? And where are they now? And if you are into classic Hollywood icons, amazing stories, and newly discovered insights, then hit that subscribe button. We are on our way to 10,000 subscribers, and your support will mean a lot to our channel. ShakKah Khan was born Yvette Marie Stevens on March 23, 1953, on the south side of Chicago. The oldest of 5 children, she grew up in a vibrant, bohemian household where music was like oxygen. Her father was a beatnik with an ear for jazz and an eye for poetry. Her mother, a stylish, determined woman who filled the home with the smell of home-cooked meals and the sound of blues records spinning on the turntable. "We were poor, but we didn't know it," ShakKah later said. "There was always music, there was always something cooking, and there was always love." She discovered her voice early, a voice that was richer, deeper, and more soulful than anyone expected from such a small girl. By 11, she was harmonizing with her sisters. By 14, she was fronting a neighborhood girl group called the Crystalettes, doing covers of Motown hits at block parties. But her teen years weren't all rehearsals and talent shows. ShakKah was a seeker, hungry for experiences, drawn to both art and activism. At 15, she joined the Black Panther Party, cooking breakfast for kids, attending rallies, and absorbing the fiery political energy of the late 60s. It was during those years that a Yoruba Baba, a spiritual elder, gave her the name ShakKah, meaning fire woman. The name fit. She carried herself with an energy that was equal parts danger and joy, the kind of presence that made you look twice. That same magnetic pull extended to her love life. She dated older musicians who were captivated by her maturity and charisma. One of those was Hassan Khan, a bass player with a warm smile and an ambitious heart. They married in 1970 when ShakKah was just 17, a decision that was part rebellion, part romance, and part escape from the rules of her family home. "I was in love, or I thought I was," she later admitted with a laugh. "But I also wanted to be grown. I wanted to make my own choices." The marriage didn't last long, but it left her with a last name the world would never forget. By 18, she had joined the Chicago funk band Rufus, quickly becoming the lead voice that would take them to the top of the charts. Her days were filled with rehearsals, recording sessions, and late-night gigs in smoky clubs. And then, in the middle of this whirlwind, life handed her something that would change her forever, something no record label could prepare her for: the news that she was going to be a mother. In 1973, just as Rufus was beginning to break into the national spotlight, ShakKah Khan, only 20 years old, gave birth to her first child, Milini. Her pregnancy came during a time when she was juggling late-night recording sessions, grueling rehearsals, and endless travel. The father was Rahsaan Morris, a fellow Chicagoan and a close friend, though they weren't married. ShakKah would later admit that the relationship was complicated, affectionate, but strained by the reality of her rising fame and the instability that came with it. She recalled in an interview, "I remember holding her in the hospital. looking at her tiny little face and thinking, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I know I love her. Milini's arrival didn't slow Shaka down for long. Within weeks, she was back on the road with Rufus, baby in tow. Shaka's mother, Sandra Coleman, stepped in to help, often caring for Milini when the tours became too demanding. Still, Shaka insisted on having her daughter with her whenever possible. The two were often seen backstage, Milini wearing oversized headphones to block out the roar of the crowd. Growing up, Milini's childhood was anything but ordinary. She played hide-and-seek behind stacks of amps and microphone stands. She dressed up in her mother's sequined gowns and high heels, tottering down dressing room hallways. She learned piano by ear, mimicking the musicians she heard night after night. But the glamour came with challenges. Touring meant instability, new cities every week, no steady school routine, and a mother whose attention was split between the stage and her little girl. Milini later said, I had the best seat in the house to watch my mom make history. But it was hard too. Sometimes I just wanted her to be home. Despite the chaos, Shaka poured her love into her daughter. She bought her books, taught her about jazz and gospel, and encouraged her to be creative. She wanted Milini to know that she was more than just ShakKah Khan's daughter. But while Shaka was learning how to be a mother, life had another twist coming, one that would once again shake up her personal world and add another child to the Khan family. By 1979, ShakKah Khan was no longer just the breakout voice of Rufus. She was a bona fide solo star. That year, she released her debut solo album, ShakKah, featuring the anthem I'm Every Woman. Her career was exploding, but her personal life was once again in transition. She had divorced Hassan Khan years earlier and was now in a relationship with Richard Holland, a musician and graphic artist. Their romance was passionate, creative, and sometimes stormy, a reflection of Shaka's own fiery nature. In the midst of recording sessions and promotional tours, Shaka discovered she was pregnant again. This time, the news came with mixed emotions. She was thrilled to be a mother again, but she knew all too well the toll fame could take on family life. On a summer day in 1979, she gave birth to her son, Damien Holland. Unlike with Milini, Shaka took more time off after his birth, wanting to soak in those early weeks without rushing back to the stage. She described Damien as a calm baby, with eyes that looked like he'd been here before. Damien's early years were split between life on the road and the quiet of his grandmother's home in Chicago. As a little boy, he had a fascination with taking things apart: toy cars, radios, even one of Shaka's microphones. He loved sketching and building, and Shaka would joke that he was part engineer, part troublemaker. But as her career demands grew, more albums, more tours, more television appearances, Shaka found herself stretched thin. The balance between superstardom and stable motherhood became even harder with two children. Her marriage to Richard Holland didn't last, and Damien, like his sister, learned to adapt to a life of shifting routines. Some weeks he'd be riding in a tour bus across Europe. Other times he'd be with relatives while Shaka worked. Despite the unconventional setup, Shaka adored her son. She took him to concerts, introduced him to musicians she called aunties and uncles, and encouraged his love of drawing and mechanics. But as the 80s turned into the 90s, the pressures of fame, the temptations of the music world, and Shaka's personal struggles with addiction began to strain her family in ways that would come to light years later. Through the late 70s and 80s, ShakKah Khan was at the peak of her career. With Rufus, she'd already won her first Grammy Award in 1974 for Tell Me Something Good, written by Stevie Wonder. As a solo artist, she collected more, winning Grammys for I'm Every Woman, Ain't Nobody, and later, I Feel For You. By the mid-'80s, she was one of the most decorated female vocalists in R&B and funk, with gold and platinum albums lining her walls. But behind the trophies and applause was a reality she didn't often talk about in public. Chaka was battling addiction, first to alcohol, then to harder substances, a struggle that stretched across decades. "I was on a hamster wheel," she later admitted. "Record, tour, party, repeat. I thought I was functioning fine, but my family knew better." The lifestyle took a toll on her children. Milini, now a teenager, often had to take on adult responsibilities, helping care for her younger brother when Chaka was away. Damien, quiet and creative, sometimes withdrew into himself, focusing on his drawings and tinkering to cope with the instability. In 2004, Chaka's family life took another dramatic turn. Damien, by then an adult, became a father to a little girl named Raven. But when Chaka saw signs that Damien was struggling with his own substance abuse, she made the painful decision to take custody of her granddaughter. "I wasn't going to stand by and let her go through what my kids went through," Chaka explained. Even while managing personal crises, Chaka kept winning awards. 1993, Grammy for I'll Be Good to You with Quincy Jones and Ray Charles. 1996, Grammy for Stomp with God's Property. 2008 Grammy for Funk This, which also won Best R&B Album. But the accolades didn't erase the guilt she carried about the time she'd missed with her kids. In interviews, she's been candid. "I can't change the past. All I can do is be better now, for them, for Raven, and for myself." As the years went by, ShakKah Khan's children stepped into adulthood, with lives shaped both by her fame and by the turbulence of their upbringing. Milini Khan grew into a confident, artistic woman. Blessed with her mother's powerful voice and charisma, she began performing in her own right, first as a background singer for Chaka on tour, then as a solo artist and actress. She appeared in stage productions like The Color Purple and Love Overboard, and took on roles in indie films and television. Milini once said, "I got my voice from my mom, but my path is my own. I don't want to be Chaka 2.0, I want to be me." Offstage, Milini kept her personal life private. She has not been publicly linked to any long-term marriages, nor is there any public record of her having children. Friends describe her as deeply loyal, creative, and protective of her family, especially her younger brother. Damien Holland, on the other hand, lived a far quieter and more complicated life. In 2006, he made headlines when he was charged in a tragic shooting case. After a long legal battle, he was acquitted, but the incident left a lasting mark. Father to a daughter named Raven, Damien struggled with substance abuse for a time, leading Chaka to take custody of Raven in 2004. Despite their challenges, Damien remained close to his mother and sister, and in recent years has focused on his passion for auto restoration, a love he's had since childhood. He spends his time rebuilding classic cars, sketching designs, and occasionally doing mechanical work for friends. As for Raven, she became the joy and focus of the family. Chaka calls her the light of my later life, crediting her granddaughter with helping her stay grounded and sober. Raven grew up surrounded by music, but has so far kept a low profile, attending school and building her own life away from the spotlight. Through triumphs, mistakes, and second chances, Chaka's children have carved out their own identities, sometimes in the public eye, sometimes far from it. And while the road hasn't been smooth, the bonds between them remain strong. By the mid-2000s, ShakKah Khan was determined to turn her life around. She entered rehab, got sober in 2005, and began to repair the relationships that had been strained by decades of chaos. "I can't change the past," she admitted, "but I can be better now. My children deserve that. My granddaughter deserved that. And so did I." Her sobriety didn't just bring personal peace, it reignited her career. In 2008, she won 2 more Grammy Awards for her album, Funk This, taking home Best R&B Album and Best R&B Performance by a Duo or Group for Disrespectful. These wins brought her Grammy total into double digits, cementing her as one of the most awarded women in R&B history. But Chaka says her proudest moments in this chapter weren't on stage. They were the private victories, family dinners without tension, seeing Raven thrive in school, and hearing from both Milini and Damien that they felt truly seen by her. She even began collaborating with Milini in select performances, bringing her daughter on stage not just as support, but as an equal. "I love singing with my mom," Milini said. "When we harmonize, it feels like everything that was ever wrong just disappears for a while." With Damien, the healing was slower, but steady. They worked together on smaller projects, and Chaka celebrated his passion for restoring cars, often sharing his work proudly with friends. She also remained deeply involved in Raven's life, guiding her into adulthood with the lessons she'd learned the hard way. Awards still came, including a BET Lifetime Achievement Award, induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2023, and numerous honors for her humanitarian work. But Chaka insisted the real reward was waking up every day sober, surrounded by a family that had been through the fire and come out still holding on to one another. "My music gave me a career," she said, "but my family gave me a reason to fight for it." ShakKah Khan's legacy will always be tied to her unmistakable voice, the kind that could roar with funk power one moment and melt into a velvet whisper the next. Over a career spanning 5 decades, she sold more than 70 million records, won 10 Grammy Awards, and influenced everyone from Whitney Houston to Mary J. Blige. But away from the spotlight, her most enduring legacy may be the resilience of her family. From the backstage childhood of Milini, to Damien's quiet fight to rebuild his life, to Raven's bright future, Chaka's children and granddaughter carry pieces of her story, the music, the struggles, and the determination to keep going. ShakKah has often said that she sees herself not just as a performer, but as a survivor. And in the end, her children are proof that survival can be a family trait. From the heights of global fame to the depths of personal struggle, from platinum albums to courtrooms and custody battles, ShakKah Khan's journey has been anything but ordinary. But for all the awards and standing ovations, maybe her greatest achievement has been keeping her family together, even when the odds were against them. So what do you think? Is ShakKah Khan's true legacy her music, or the family she fought to hold on to? Let us know in the comments. And if you love uncovering the real stories behind the legends, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. This was Whatever Happened to ShakKah Khan's Kids. Thanks for watching.